What's going on, everybody? Welcome in the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman, and we got a loaded show for you guys today as ESPN gave out their predictions on where Sam Darnold is going to land in free agency. And a little spoiler, it is not the Minnesota Vikings, so stay tuned for that. Then also Brian Flores. I think it's looking more and more likely that he will be staying as the defensive coordinator for our Minnesota Vikings. So we got a lot to talk about on today's show. But guys, it's going to be a very busy offseason for our Minnesota Vikings. And if you guys want to stay up to date around everything on the purple and gold, hit that subscribe button. Let's see if we can pick up 10 new subscribers on today's show. But we could get a new update on Flores, on Sam Darnold, any minute throughout this offseason. So if you guys don't want to miss a thing, hit that subscribe button, lock us in as your go-to Minnesota Vikings YouTube channel. So let's dive into it. ESPN on Sam Darnold. They were predicting where every starting quarterback could go this offseason, and Jeremy Fowler came out and said the consensus predictions are Sam Darnold will not sign with the Minnesota Vikings. He will sign with the Las Vegas Raiders. And this makes a ton of sense on a lot of different fronts that we will dive into. But Fowler actually shared a very interesting quote with an NFL high-ranking personnel member, and he explained his thoughts on why he thinks Sam Darnold does make a lot of sense for the Raiders this offseason. He says, at pick 6, the Raiders are out of range for a QB unless they move up, which wouldn't be smart based on the amount of holes they have. They need every pick. They have flexibility within the cap to get it done, talking about a Sam Darnold deal. And, the big question here is, what type of contract is Sam Darnold going to get? Because you see his raw numbers from the first 17 games of the season, he was one of the better quarterbacks in the league. 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, really was the driving force for that Vikings offense. He was one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL. Almost every advanced analytic you look at in terms of 20-plus yard throws down the field, Sam Darnold was amazing. But the question comes, in the biggest moments, against the Lions, against the Rams, Sam Darnold took a massive, massive step back. And that's also why I believe the Vikings would be doing the right thing in terms of letting him walk and not overpaying for a guy who in the biggest moments this season just completely fizzled out. A guy that looked like he had the yips in the biggest moments. And, I got my question marks around Kevin O'Connell. I don't think he did the best job in that Lions and Rams games in terms of setting up Sam Darnold for success. I thought he honestly set him up to fail in a couple of these spots. A lot of these long developing plays just wasn't how I would attack the Lions and Rams defense. But in terms of the Raiders, this makes a whole lot of sense for them, personally on what they're trying to get done, because like Jeremy Fowler said, they're not in a position to land a quarterback in this year's draft. But it's all going to come down to who they hire as their next head coach. Like if they go out and get a Pete Carroll, would Pete Carroll want Sam Darnold to be QB1? I have no idea. So it's really going to come down to what their new brass, their GM, their head coach, what they want from the quarterback position. But I could really see the Raiders tossing Darnold, maybe that Baker Mayfield type of deal where it's 3 years for, $110 million, let's just say. But I just think the Vikings are getting priced out on this. Like, even if they wanted to bring Darnold back on a 2-year, $40 million deal, I just don't think that's going to be on the play or on the table for them. I think the Steelers, the Raiders, even the Colts, one of these QB desperate teams, will offer Sam Darnold a big enough contract where he can't even consider returning to Minnesota. But I do want to share with you guys just a bad take out there. And this was coming in from Benjamin Slowick, also of ESPN, saying, I really, truly believe the Vikings will extend Sam Darnold. They will quietly look to trade J.J. McCarthy ahead of a bad QB draft class and see if a needy team takes the bait. I absolutely hate this from Benjamin Slowick because, one, he's just assuming the Vikings brass and the Vikings front office just, does not appreciate or does not value J.J. McCarthy high whatsoever. But Slowick, I just don't think he has any idea what he's talking about in terms of the Vikings and what they want to do with J.J. McCarthy, because I think it has been crystal clear that the Vikings value J.J. as that guy that's going to be that rookie quarterback on that rookie deal, and you have him playing at a top 10, top 12 level in the National Football League, and I think that's been Kwesi's master plan all along. He got a big whiff of what the San Francisco 49ers and what they did to lead to success in that organization over the last 5 years, where you have a Jimmy Garoppolo or a Brock Purdy on a super cheap contract, and then you build a stacked roster around him. That's what the Vikings want to do. That has been their master plan all along, and I don't think they're going to overreact to one good season from Darnold. I think, yes, they would like to bring him back on the right contract, or that's 2 for 50, 2 for 40, but that's just not going to be available as it stands right now. But former NFL MVP Cam Newton actually weighed in on the J.J. McCarthy, Sam Darnold conversation. He said, bring Sam Darnold back as your starter because of what he was able to do this year and allow him to compete. Is he the week 1 starter? Hey, we're going to compete this out and let the cream rise to the top. Now, I get what Cam Newton's saying. That's an ideal situation for the Vikings where you are able to, bring Sam Darnold back and him and JJ compete it out. But you're not going to pay Sam Darnold 3 years, $110 million to have him compete to be the starting quarterback. That's just not an option for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, if Darnold, let's just say he's open to the franchise tag at $41 million, I still have my questions if the Vikings would take that, considering they have a whole lot of money to spend in free agency, and I don't think they want to kind of limit themselves with that $41 million cap hit, because with the franchise tag, it's not like you can add void years, you can add dead cap, where it's not a $41 million hit for that season. If it is the tag, there is no, reworking that. You would be on the books for $41 million next season, and I stand by this. I think the biggest advantage, and there is no bigger advantage in the NFL than having a QB on a rookie deal. Like, how do you set yourself up for success? You can get an advantage by any way you can, and if you are paying a quarterback like JJ, for example, 4 years, $22 million, compared to Darnold at 3 for 110, whatever that contract may be, I just think it is pretty obvious what the Vikings are trying to do here. They're trying to, get that rookie deal, get that stacked roster. But, hey, maybe you guys disagree with me. Maybe you guys think the Vikings are going to roll out with Sam Darnold this offseason. Let me know. Pick a quarterback for me. Give me a 9 for J.J. McCarthy, or give me a 14 for Sam Darnold. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Curious to see what you guys have to say. Now we'll talk about Brian Flores here in a second, as it's looking more and more likely that he will be the defensive coordinator for the Vikings this upcoming offseason. But before we dive into it, I do want to tell you guys about my favorite sponsor here at Chat Sports, and that is Factor Meals. Now, eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/VikingsChat50off. And if you guys plug in that promo code VikingsChat50off, you guys will get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code VikingsChat50off at factormeals.com/VikingsChat50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Now, they got a ton of great meals on here. You guys see the teriyaki chicken, the black pepper and sage pork chop. They are fantastic. And if you guys live a busy lifestyle and don't always have time to, make home-cooked meals every single night, that's where Factor comes into play. They have completely changed my life. And if you guys are ready to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. So you can feel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. And Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active and busy lifestyle. So check them out. Head to factormeals.com/VikingsChat50off and use code VikingsChat50off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code VikingsChat50off at factormeals.com/VikingsChat50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. I got that link for you guys in the comment section and description of today's show. But seriously, give them a look. Change my life here, and I promise they will change yours. Just live a better life with Factor. So check them out, factormeals.com/VikingsChat50off. All right, let's talk about it. Brian Flores staying as the defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. Well, I think it's looking more and more likely. And let's just take a look here at what has been going on in the NFL, over the last couple of days. Now, Ben Johnson did go to the Chicago Bears. We broke that down yesterday. The Patriots hired Mike Vrabel, and it's looking more and more likely that the New York Jets will hire Aaron Glenn to be their next head coach. So that leaves the Cowboys, the Jags, the Saints, and the Raiders as the 4 teams left without a head coach, assuming Aaron Glenn does go to the New York Jets. But the one thing that I think is kind of hinting that Flores will be returning as the defensive coordinator here is he had interviews with the Bears and the Jets. Well, those head coaching searches are almost wrapped up. And then if we kick it to the Jags side, the third team to interview Brian Flores, well, Schefter tweeted this out yesterday. The Jags head coach search. The Jags are bringing in former Raiders DC Patrick Graham, former Jets head coach Robert Saleh, and Buccaneers offensive coordinator Liam Cohen this week for in-person second interviews. Brian Flores is not on this list. I don't think, unless a team gets absolutely desperate, like let's just say the Raiders, for example, or even like, let's just say the Cowboys get extremely, extremely desperate, I think Flores is going to stay as the DC of the Minnesota Vikings. And this is huge because we remember when Ed Donatel was the defensive coordinator here a couple years ago, it was one of the worst defenses in the National Football League. And, if you look at the Vikings' moves last offseason, like bringing in Cashman, bringing in Van Ginkel, even a guy like Jonathan Grenard, all those guys were perfect scheme fits with what Brian Flores likes to do. And I would probably say the Vikings had B-level talent in terms of, how much talent they had on defense, but they produced like an A-level group. I mean, 5th in points per game, yards per game, a little higher than you would want. Same with yards per play, but third down percentage, they were great. They're great at stopping the run, second in the league. They're also great at getting to the quarterback, great at taking the football away. All of those were kind of recipes to have a Super Bowl level defense, and I think it would be huge just to leave that continuity in that locker room. Like if you are going back to work, not having to, learn a whole new system, not having to learn a whole new defense, like that truly, truly does matter. Where now Flores can just say, hey, I'm committed to Minnesota. He has talked about that his family loves being here. He loves being there. And honestly, even if the Jags bring him in for a second interview, I would really find it hard to believe that Flores would pack up his family, go to Jacksonville and coach, Trevor Lawrence, who some reports that he doesn't necessarily love football as much as you would hope your starting quarterback would, but I just think Flores, I think it's more likely than not that he's going to be staying as the defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. But if you guys made it to the end of today's show, give me a skull down below in the comment section so I can know where all the real ones are at. And also, I am on Twitter. That's a handle right there, at Pat Sieps. Give me a follow over there. I'll give you guys a follow back. But thank you guys so much for watching today's show. We'll see you guys next time. As always, Skol Vikes.